Animal idioms in the English language. Before we get started, let's first talk a little bit about what idioms are. Idioms are word combinations or phrases that have a different figurative meaning than the literal meanings of each word or phrase. Here's some examples. Hit the sack, meaning go to sleep. No one is going to physically hit a sack. Get out of hand, meaning to get out of control. Nothing is physically leaving your hand. They are merely figures of speech, and most languages use them. English has a great many idioms, and they can be both comical and confusing to someone who is learning the language. The English language has so many idioms that they can be broken up into their own categories. In this video, we're going to explore animal idioms. All bark and no bite. When someone makes verbal threats but doesn't back them up. Here's an example. Tiffany threatened to quit her job if she didn't get a raise. It's just talk though, because she's all bark and no bite. Ants in your pants. Fidgety and or unable to sit still. Here's an example. Daniel always has to be doing something. He can't just relax and watch TV. He must have ants in his pants. Barking up the wrong tree. Having the wrong impression of something. Here's an example. If you think the county is going to pay for our new neighborhood streetlights, you're barking up the wrong tree. Bats in the belfry indicates that someone is behaving in an unusual, eccentric, or bizarre manner. Here's an example. The lady across the street is a hoarder. She may also have a few bats in the belfry. Birds and the bees. This is a common reference to sex education. Here's an example. When Jaden asked his mom where babies come from, she figured it was time to have a talk about the birds and the bees. Birds of a feather. People who have similar interests or are similar in character. Here's an example. John and Paul are birds of a feather. They both love playing guitar, writing songs, and restoring old cars. Bee in your bonnet. Being obsessed or agitated about something. Here's an example. The lady at the town hall meeting clearly had a bee in her bonnet about the need for a traffic light at the intersection of Oak and Main Streets. Black sheep. The one who doesn't fit in. Here's an example. He was the black sheep of the family. He didn't share their religious beliefs, he only worked when he had to, and he refused to conform. Busy bee. A person who has a lot going on. Here's an example. So far today, I've cut the lawn, gone to the grocery store, done the laundry, and baked a pie. I've been a busy bee. Bull in a china shop. A person who is clumsy and careless. Here's an example. The appliance repairman didn't wipe his feet upon entering, dropped a wrench on the floor, and laid his dirty tools on the kitchen counter, knocking over a drink in the process. He was a real bull in a china shop. Butterflies in your stomach. A nervous feeling in your tummy. Here's an example. I love the idea of being a motivational speaker, but just the thought of speaking in front of an audience gives me butterflies in my stomach. Catnap, a short period of sleep. Here's an example. Sometimes it's refreshing to take a little cat nap in the middle of the day. Cat's got your tongue. Usually said to someone who isn't talking. Here's an example. When questioned about her part in the scheme, Heather grew quiet. What's the matter? Cat's got your tongue? Asked her teacher. Cat's meow. An expression used when you think something is really fantastic or wonderful. Here's an example. The first time the little girl tasted cheesecake, she thought it was the cat's meow. Chicken out. To be afraid to do something. Here's an example. We were going to sing a duet at karaoke night, but we chickened out at the last minute. Clam up. To suddenly become quiet. Never to be confused with glam up. Here's an example. The subject of his troubled youth would often cause Damien to clam up. Copycat. A person who does the same thing as someone else. Here's an example. I got some new eyeglasses and my friend bought some that are exactly like mine. She's such a copycat. Cool cat. A person who is relaxed, cool, and respected among their peers. Here's an example. Tom is a super nice guy and a great musician. He's such a cool cat. Cry wolf. A person who raises a false alarm. Here's an example. The girl had pretended to be sick so often. Now that she was truly sick, no one was going to believe her. She's cried wolf too many times. Dog days. These are the hottest days of the year, usually from July 3rd to August 11th. Here's an example. When I was a child, the dog days of summer were sweltering. We had no air conditioning, and in an attempt to stay cool, we spent our days at the local swimming pool. In the sultry evenings, we consumed a lot of cold beverages and ice cream. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't depend on something happening before it does. Here's an example. The couple had planned on taking a nice vacation once their house sold. They booked a fancy cruise, but unfortunately the sale of the house fell through. Looks like they counted their chickens before they hatched. Down the rabbit hole. A quest or journey where one thing leads to another. Here's an example. Every time I watch a YouTube video, I end up going down the rabbit hole. I start with one topic, and before you know it, I'm learning about underwater basket weaving. Drinks like a fish. When someone drinks too much alcohol. Here's an example. I offered to give Larry a ride home from the party, as he had been drinking like a fish. Dropping like flies. Dying or being eliminated suddenly. Here's an example. The obstacle course was particularly difficult. The contestants were dropping like flies. Eager beaver. Someone who is very willing or excited to do something. Here's an example. Jack loves fixing things. If you need a good handyman, give him a call. He's an eager beaver. Early bird. Someone who wakes up early. The early bird gets the worm means that being first or early improves your chance for success. Here's an example. Nikki wakes up at 5 a.m. so that she can go to the gym before work. She's an early bird. Elephant in the room. Something that everybody in the room is aware of that probably needs to be discussed. Here's an example. The high price of gasoline is the elephant in the room that politicians would rather avoid than discuss. Fish out of water. When someone is not comfortable in a situation or feel out of their element. Here's an example. Coming from a small town, Amanda felt like a fish out of water her first week on the enormous campus of The Ohio State University. Fishy. When something seems odd or suspicious. Here's an example. The girls couldn't keep their stories straight. It was obvious that something fishy was happening. For the birds. Something that's undesirable or absurd. Here's an example. I'm all for helping the environment, but paper straws are for the birds, especially when they're wrapped in plastic. Get the lion's share. To receive the greatest percentage. Here's an example. Seeing how you did most of the work, you should receive the lion's share of the profit. Get your ducks in a row. Get organized and get things in order. Here's an example. Janice makes fun of people who are extremely organized, but that's because she's never really had her ducks in a row. Gets my goat. Something that really bothers or annoys someone. Here's an example. When people are rude, it gets my goat. Go hog wild. To act in an unrestrained or excessive manner. Here's an example. It was Brent's 21st birthday and he went hog wild at the party. Gone to the dogs. When something has deteriorated in quality. Here's an example. We used to eat at that restaurant all the time, but they're under new management and the place has really gone to the dogs. Hair of the dog. Short for hair of the dog that bit me. Usually refers to having more alcohol to help with a hangover. Here's an example. Carson started his day with a shot of whiskey. He thought some hair of the dog was the only thing that would help. Have a dog in the hunt. Typically said as, I don't have a dog in the hunt, meaning they have no vested interest in the outcome. Here's an example. Jonathan asked who I wanted to win the Super Bowl. I told him it didn't matter to me. I don't have a dog in the hunt. Hold your horses. Slow down. Really stop and think about what you're doing. Here's an example. Pam bolted out of the door on her way to the grocery store. Hold your horses. You might want to grab the grocery list, her husband Bob reminded her. Horse around. Playing or goofing off. Here's an example. Like most teenagers, the girls would rather horse around and dance to the latest tunes than do their homework. Horse of a different color. Something of another matter entirely. Here's an example. Going for long walks is one thing, but being able to run a marathon is a horse of a different color. Thanks for watching, and be sure to watch part 2 for more animal idioms. What is your favorite animal idiom?